Welcome back. So let's talk about the difference of strategic and tactical actions and responses within the competitive landscape. So we talked about the difference of competitive actions and responses earlier. One is proactive and one is reactive. But strategically, what that means is that we decide at a bigger scale what our approach to our competition will be. If you've ever been into a Kohl's department store, they have a strategic action that they do a lot, and that is they have it's kind of moderately high, not really high, but moderately above average costs for their products. They always almost always have a sale going on, and they give out their Kohl dollars. I forgot what they're called, Kohl bucks. So they draw you in by having a discount up to 20%, and then when you check out, you get Kohl bucks that you can spend a week later. So that is a very strategic plan. They've done it for years. That's how they compete with Target or J.C. Penney's. So that's their strategic action. Tactically, an action is a tactical action is a move that firms make to kind of fine tune. So if they decided that this week their sale wasn't really working and they wanted to extend it to the next week, that might be a tactical action. Or if they decided that they needed to do a 30% sale this week because of some internal supply chain issue or market-based issue, then that would be tactical. So tactical is short term. Same with responses. When we were with the organization that was a copycat competitor, we sat back and made a very strategic response. How are we going to communicate with teachers and schools across the country so they knew how we were different? That's strategic. Tactically, what we did was talk to teachers every day, change our plan. We had more one-on-one conversations at conferences. We put ourselves into more spaces where those teachers were. So that was more tactical. So this is a model of competitive rivalry, which is really the straightforward approach to saying that that we'll talk about next. And feedback is an important part, just like in communication. Feedback is an important part of the loop. So competitor analysis is when we look at ourselves and our competitors from this analytical space of what market do we share and what market do we focus on versus what are our resources and who are we internally. So remember that whole external internal analysis, some of that comes into play here. Drivers of competitive behavior mean in these three areas, we have to be aware. We have to be aware of what's going on around us. We have to have a motivation to respond. Sometimes the right answer is to do nothing. So what is our motivation? And what's our ability? That could be money, that could be time, that could be resources, it could be opportunity costs. If we focus here, what are we giving up? Because we can't do all things all the time. And then we'll talk about the likelihood of attack from competitors and the likelihood of our response. So when we talk about how likely are we opening ourselves up to attack, we'll talk about first movers and organizational size and the quality of our products and services. We'll also talk about type of competitive actions in response and what that looks like. What's our reputation? How much are we dependent on that specific market? Outcomes relate to our market position, how we hold it, grow it, sustain it, minimize it if we need to, and what is our financial performance. All of that should then come back and drive our competitive analysis. So competitive analysis is the idea that we can predict our competitors' actions and responses if we're really aware of understanding of the competitive environment. So we're going to look at our competitors' future objectives. What are they trying to accomplish? What can we tell just by the way they behave in the marketplace? And what are their current strategies? What assumptions can we make? And what capabilities do they have? So when we better understand our competitors, we can use this competitive analysis to predict the behaviors. What are they going to do next? What might they do next? So this shows different hypothetical intersections between with a firm, our own organization and competitors in terms of market commonality and resource similarity. So if you think about that we are for resource A, so we are the square, and our competitor that we're now analyzing is the resource B, the triangle. So if we look at what's their crossover from market commonality, if we look at the top quadrant 2 and quadrant 3, then what we notice is if we are recognizing that we're head on competing frequently for the same dollar that someone's spending with another competitor, then that would be number 2. But if we don't have a lot of overlap, maybe we go back to differentiating ourselves, or we cost leader and they're differentiating through a different means, as an example, then our market commonality is low. And then when we look at our resource similarities, that's also looking at when our resources aren't very similar. But when we can look at our resources, our similarity of resources are very similar. That means we have very similar makeups within the organization. We do the same things. Then we can see that in quadrant 1, we might have a high overlap of customers and we're very similar in our resources. That would mean kind of that copycat competitor I was talking about. We're trying to reach the same people and they look just like us. We have very similar resources. That would be quadrant 1. And then quadrant 4 is we don't share customers very much and our resources are pretty different. So there is not much overlap there. The reason this is important to recognize is because it changes what we will do in our future decisions related to competition. So take a break for a minute, come back, and we'll finish talking about competition.